Mentors are quite literally everywhere, in whatever shape or form they might possess at the time. The death rate is alarmingly high, only being surpassed by the also evil villains and nearly every parent in any Disney movie. But why is that? Are they just obsolete, or is there more to the death of every Uncle Ben in the history of cinema? Let's find out, shall we? Mentors are an essential archetype in the hero's journey, the oldest, simplest, and arguably easiest structure of stories in general. Mentors in general serve for the audience as a point of reference and provide a simple source of exposition. The viewer in this case is just as annoying as the protagonist, thus the hero may ask the mentor, a seemingly omniscient being, about the author's world. Plain and simple. Now, as I suggested earlier, they come in quite differing varieties, which can not only mean a change of their role in the story, but also a change of their respective chance of surviving, at least until chapter 2. The main types of mentors include the following. This is the most common connotation with the word mentor. Classically, an old man has seen his share of the world, void of all character arcs and evolution. These typically serve as a starting point for the hero, or in this case, the audience. Once they have fulfilled their purpose and successfully got us, and therefore the protagonist, invested into the story, their chance of survival is downright depressing. Which is made even worse by the sheer abundance in today's cinema. The baddest mentor is usually quite difficult to handle. These are often fighters out of the prime, unwilling or resistant to teach it all, and the hero has to undergo several tests or challenges to gain their trust. More often than not, these can be pretty hard on the students, keeping them in line through fear and discipline. However, that doesn't mean that they're hard asses all around. Frequently, they show entirely different behaviors when it comes to the people they hold closest. It's just their way of teaching. They are far more interesting than the standard Walmart mentor, but nonetheless, their death rate is pretty high. Usually fulfilling their character arc by showing affection to their disciple and sacrificing themselves in the process. The reluctant mentor has no interest in actually teaching the hero, but through a sheer force of nature, mostly stubbornness on the hero's side, they'd end up doing it anyway, for better or for worse. Since these mentors are inherently flawed, they make up for way better characters overall. More often than not, the mentor ends up learning quite a bit from their student in this case. Since they got their own arc going on, they tend to die far less often than their not so interesting counterparts. The trickster mentor is a fairly interesting character trope. Nature and foolery is their form of teaching. Their teaching methods include mundane tasks and seemingly useless exercises. Mr. Miyagi and Yoda fall into this category. However, they're often masters of the creed and every task has its point.
But master, do I have to do the dishes?
Did I stutter?
You probably already guessed that since they are far more interesting than Billy Bob Ben Kenobi, they end up dying far less often. That doesn't mean that they're immune though. Yoda! The evil mentor is the rarest kind of mentor. This mentor is downright villainous, but either needs the hero for some probably ill-advised motive or isn't aware of the fact that the protagonist's ideals might differ from their own. Since they are both villains and mentors, two of the deadliest occupations in the history of storytelling, their death ratio is, let's put it, suboptimal. But why kill them off? Due to the nature, mentor stories revolve solely around the protagonists. They are easy to kill, especially when they have fulfilled the purpose of teaching about the universe and stuff. Nonetheless, their loss often hurts. Any of you haven't cried during Mufasa's death scene on Monsters. Killing characters is usually pretty hard. As an author, you basically lock off any potential the character might have in the future. But as a general rule of thumb, when the emotional impact of the death is greater than the future arc of that character might be, that character is probably pretty gonzies. But that's a good thing, actually. Like the voiceover at the end of every sitcom to sum up the events of the concurrent episode, the death of the mentor archetype is kind of a crutch. But I'm not dunking on the basic principles of storytelling. It's simple, it works. But what does it mean for us as people that we're so affected by this? The most prominent mentors in our lives are our parents, or by extension, our great parents. And whether we want to or not, most of us are sooner or later confronted by the reality that our mentors are mortal. This doesn't necessarily mean literal death, but rather the death of their ability to teach us. Because as mentors,
we are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters.